Hi, I'm Sheldon Piacquadio, and this is Strategic Farsight. So what is Strategic Farsight? At its simplest, it's a timeline for exploring the future. You can scroll through an ever-growing set of predictions generated by our users with AI, far, far in the future if you want to, millions of years, at least until the end of life on Earth. And for each of these predictions, you can view a nice little article generated by the AI, which explains the logic behind the prediction and what will happen. This is a particularly sad story about the CO2 levels dropping and all the plants dying and the animals then dying and then the oceans evaporating, and it just gets worse from there. At its most complex, it uses AI to analyze hypothetical future scenarios, such as this one about the agricultural industry in the 22nd century after a nuclear war in 2084. You can see it's not so good for humanity. The population drops, GDP flattens, life expectancy goes down, etc., etc. So what happens is that the system uses the baseline predictions that the community has generated as a base truth. It uses those to extrapolate trends, and then based on the hypothetical future, it revises the trends, and it also revises the predictions. If I show only the revised, you'll see that it repredicts some of the predictions. Lab-grown meat doesn't come until the middle of the 22nd century. This one got flagged for revision, but it ended up not being revised. So what's all this good for? We hope it will be useful for futurists who might want to use the futures cone to carefully analyze different possible futures, science fiction writers who might want to create consistent future time periods, which is what I'm using it for, and also corporate strategists who might need to study near-term scenarios in order to provide strategic foresight. All right, that's the basic idea. The rest of the video is a tour of the site, so stick around if you want to see the details on how you actually make use of this stuff. So what we'll do is start with one of the more fun things, which is just asking for a prediction. So I'll ask, when will biologists succeed in the de-extinction of a dinosaur species? So we'll start this. It takes a while to run. So in the meantime, I'll say a bit about these questions you can put in. Mostly the system is looking for serious predictions of the future. It will try to filter out hypothetical things like, when will Tom Cruise buy a new car, something like that, or very anything that can't be extrapolated from facts that isn't something that we can build on logically. You can ask for trends. If you want to ask for a trend, you typically want to say, please extrapolate something, like population size or something like that. And those are really the two types of predictions that you can put in from this main search box. We may add more later. And what else? Let's see. While it's finishing, I will start talking about the timeline. Oops. So how you move around on the timeline. You just grab and move. Oh, it did finish quickly. Okay, we'll get back to that. So yeah, de-extinction of a dinosaur species, 2085. So I knew it'd be kind of difficult because we don't have all the information about the dinosaurs themselves, just tiny fragments of biological material. The long road to dinosaur de-extinction. So you'll get as I said before, a story back or an article analysis of whatever you asked for. So yeah, the DNA degradation barrier, we won't read it all now, but that's the problem. We don't have their DNA. We can reverse engineer through birds, I guess. Computational paleogenomics. So using lots of AI, we can get closer. Technical challenges beyond DNA. Of course, you got to be able to gestate the fetus, as I thought, skeptical perspective. So there's skeptics that this will even happen, probably, blah, 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 blah. So then it comes up with a realistic prediction, backs it up, provides some sources. It provides a few links. Basically, the new model is smarter about not inventing links. So most of these are coming out good now. And then lots of sources. These tend to be pretty good. Sometimes they don't exactly match up, but if you search for them, they tend to be based on something real that the model has. So if you like something that comes out of this process, you hit save to add it to the database. So So we can go look for the prediction. Let's see, 2085. There it is, de-extinction of a dinosaur species. So to find content on the site, that'll be the next segment of this tour. You can see you can physically be scrolling through the timeline. There are also filters over here. Over time, there will be more and more things to find, so it will get difficult to maybe find what you're looking for. So you can you can sort, excuse me, to get the most significant ones on top. So you're discovering the theory of everything in physics, technology to preserve human lives indefinitely. Those are very important, I guess. And then going down, you'll see less and less significant predictions. So one way to filter down, you can then filter by a second factor like type. You can turn different types off. So if you just want to know about scientific advances, you just show the discoveries. You can also filter by significance. So if you just want to get just down to the significant ones, you can do that, or just go to the silly stuff, flying carbon technology. There you go. So that's one way to find things. You can also search by keyword. You can also do an or, so you can say medical and nanotechnology to find stuff. So various ways to get at the content. Also, I should say, to find trends. So the system also predicts trends based on its knowledge of predictions. You just go down here and you can pick one from pull down and it shows up. To add another one, you hit the plus down here at the bottom. You can search for a trend. As we get more of these, we'll need to do that. And just add them in, and they become part of the view you're looking at as you're studying the future. Okay, so to find content in a different way, you can go to, first of all, your stuff. If you've built predictions, then they'll show up in your dashboard here. So you got predictions, trends, and scenarios, which we'll talk about at the end, which is the more complicated stuff. And you can go to all stuff, which is what everybody has created. So all predictions, all trends, and of course you can filter down with that medical and scenarios too. Scenarios are private by default, so you can keep your content to yourself, but they will show up here if you publish them, so you can see all the community's scenarios. And with that, I think that's all we need to talk about for finding stuff. So the heart of the site is creating fictional future scenarios, whether you want to study them for work, sort of corporate strategy, or write science fiction like I do. So you have this builder here, and I'll explain what it is so you can imagine how you would use this. So there really are two main pieces. One is the question you want to have analyzed. So you can see here it's asking about consuming culture in the 2040s and how it will affect the advertising industry. These can be pretty freeform. You're talking to an AI, so you can be pretty loose about what you're asking it to do. And same with the context. And the context is your fictional future. So this is talking about cybernetic medical advances going 20% faster than expected, oligopolies being broken down into a better, more freely regulated market. And we just threw in a massive solar flare in 2032 that wipes out all electronic communications, just to throw a curveball in there. So all this you can throw at the AI, and it'll figure out what that future will look like. So before we look at the result of this, a few more bits on how you're building this scenario. So you're really actually also building it by this view of the predictions and the view of trends. So when you add a trend down here, you're basically saying whatever the current scenario is, add this trend, consider it when you do your analysis. Same with the timeline, but by default, we don't constrain the predictions in view, but there is this checkbox here to constrain to the prediction filters. That could become important when we have thousands of predictions. Right now the system looks across 500 and sorts them by significance and does a pretty good job finding what is important. So probably not needed right away, but available for the future. And then finally, when you've got your scenario figured out, you click this run analysis over here, and it'll put together the report. It'll revise predictions, revise trends for that future, and then you can click on details here to get to the report and read it. And I think that's about all to say about scenarios and analysis. We'll load the result of this test scenario. And let's see. Solar flare digital revolution. So you can see what comes out of this. So we go over here to the details. And tells you revised 7 predictions, 3 trends, and it walks through what this future would be like. So it's the post-flare renaissance. So there's a reconstruction after all the electronics have gone away. There's some it talks about the tech monopoly as part of the decentralization. The cybernetic stuff is pretty surprising, and all some of the futures that have come out based on those predictions in the medical field has really created some crazy things that could happen in culture when our minds are connected to our outputs directly. So yes, talks about the creative expression with just mental wiring into the tools. Amateur content was a trend it had predicted before, and of course that's affected massively by this change in the way culture is created. Cultural consumption patterns change because we're all wired together. And then of course advertising changes because of that, from interruption to integration. We're all, like I said, wired together and creating content, consuming it together. So it goes into some, philosophical thoughts, analysis of culture. This looks at economics, and then some more analysis here about issues this may raise, yada yada yada. So quite a bit comes out of the scenario building analysis. We throw a little bit more horsepower at these reports, and you get your set of citations again. This one had no hyperlinks, which I think is great, because if it doesn't know it shouldn't be giving it to us. Oh, and one thing I wanted to point out about this, it will create fictional sources from the future, so here's one from 2043, 2044, but it does note that they are extrapolated. So it adds some nice color to the essays, and we've gotten the model to where it is acknowledging when it's doing that and giving you a bit of fiction to work with versus reality. And I think that is the basic tour of the site, so hopefully you know enough to use it, and thanks for watching.